listeners, and welcome to my show, A Moment with Dr. Ayesha Mughees on Galaxy Radio Namibia. Today's topic is men's rights, men's opinion of women's rights. So, this is basically from a man's point of view. So, despite the eldritch horrors of women's rights, with no further delay, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have all the way from Chicago, Illinois, United States of America, Tim Goldich, who has spent the last 25 years in researching, pondering, and writing a 4-book series on gender issues. He has his own social media page. Next, we have Partho Salukan, who is a tenured men's rights activist from India. He is connected with the movement for over 10 years and maintains an exclusive research-oriented website on men's rights and the male factor. He is an avid reader, writer, and a reviewer of books and movies. When he is not doing research on something, he is probably learning about Vedic lifestyle. Last of all, we have Amit Deshpande, who is the founder president of the organization Vasta Foundation for the Cause Men's Rights and Gender Equality, and he's from Mumbai, India. A very warm welcome to all of you on my show. So, his idea is not to subjugate you if you're a woman, just because we don't have women rights activists here, but definitely we're here to know the male perspective of men's rights, women's rights, and gender equality. So, with no further delay, let me start with our questions. The first question is for you, Tim. You have supported both gender equality and National Coalition for Men. People think that you own the page National Coalition for Men. So, please clarify that. Also, what kind of equality do you think men deserve when you talk about gender equality?
Well, my page is called Gender Equalists. I call myself an equalist. The National Coalition for Men page is not mine, but I support NCFM. Why? Because in the realms of gender conflict and complaint, gender activism and advocacy, gender defining, gender issues, gender studies, gender politics, gender anything, there is feminism on the one hand, and on the other hand there is pretty much nothing. I regard that as a kind of ideological dictatorship. From the beginning, feminism has presented the male power, female victimization half of gender reality as if it were gender reality in its entirety. But it is not. This female monopoly on gender issues itself demonstrates that the sisterhood is powerful, and men do poorly in comparison with women in health, mental health, longevity, social services, homelessness, imprisonment. The list is endless. Women receive the far majority of advanced degrees, and so unmarried women far out-earn their male counterparts, and do so even though men are so desperate to earn money, and will do most anything to earn money, that men are 16 times as likely to die on the job. When charged with the same crime, men suffer a 63% longer average prison sentence, and are more than 3 times as likely to be murdered, and so on. I support NCFM because it raises awareness of this other half of gender reality so that gender issues may be addressed in a fair and balanced way. Why? Well, because I think men deserve the same kind of equality that women deserve.
Alright, now coming to Partho and Amit, I have a question for both of you. To you, what does the term men's rights mean, and why did you decide to raise your voice for it? Are there experiences from your own personal life that led you into becoming a men's rights activist or advocate? Alright, so Amit, let's start with you first.
Men's rights is a concept of highlighting men's issues which are often neglected in the society. It is just like highlighting any other entity within a society, like there are women's rights, children's rights, forums to talk about issues highlighting senior citizens, about environment, about animals. So just like any other aspect of the society has issues and those need to be highlighted, and there are forums. So men's rights is also a movement which is about highlighting men's issues. It is no different from anything else. About me, my personal experiences, yes, I was facing a false case against me, um, which led me to seek help. And when I was seeking help for something uh, that was completely utterly false, and I saw the whole system ganging up against me, I did not have any recourse to justice. That's the point when I was looking out if there are certain forums, platforms wherein I can get help, and I found none. So I founded this non-governmental organization, which is Vastav Foundation, and now we are going ahead and doing a lot of activity which highlight men's issues.
Yes, Partho, your answer to this question?
Hi, Ayesha. First of all, thanks very much for having me on the show. Now, for me, men's rights is an ever evolving concept, and I'm still learning about it. But, as I understand, men's rights is something that, helps men to live with dignity in life. They get their due credit for the work they do, and they are respected in all spheres of life. Now, the reason I joined men's rights in the first place was I have seen the widespread atrocities against men. The law misuse is one part of it, but there are other, hatred, misandry in different forms existing in the society. And as a result, I have decided to work for men's rights 10 years ago. In fact, 10 years ago, the situation was even worse than what it is today. And yes, there are some personal experiences. I did face some law misuse related issues, but I think those are secondary issues because there are so many other concerns that we have so that we need to fight for men's rights. In fact, everyone needs to fight for men's rights for a better society.
So, Partho, what are some of the ongoing issues related to men that, in your opinion, need to be addressed?
Now, Ayesha, if I really want to, list down any number of issues for men's rights or burning issues for men's rights, I'm sure, I'll make mistakes there. I know I'll miss out some important points. But how I look at it is, you know, we need to first identify different forms of misandry in the society. Now, misandry is the core of every problem that men face today. Now, you have heard a lot about misogyny, I'm sure, and that's why I'm doing research on Vedic society as well. So to understand, what are the forms of misogyny that existed there, and I found that it was not misogyny at all. We actually tried to save our women. That is how I am trying to understand misandry as well from different sources, including the other MRAs, to understand in what are the different forms misandry exist. And I not only study about those, I also highlight about those forms of misandry, so that first of all the challenge is to think wisely about men, to think about men's rights, and only then other things can fall in place. All other laws misuse, all other different spheres of men's rights can be addressed. So first and foremost, and only important point for me is to understand misandry, to highlight about it, and to make the world understand misandry.
Yes, Amit, same question.
If we talk about the ongoing issues related to men which need to be addressed, there are many, and there are a lot of them which are universal in nature. Specific communities have certain specific issues, but if we talk about the universal ones, it is the major thing is the suicides of men. Every 7 minutes, a man commits suicide in India, and the male to female ratio of suicides is extremely, uh, you know, leaning towards men committing more suicides across all societies in the world. So this is often extremely neglected. Almost twice the number of men commit suicide all over the world. And is being done to address this issue. The universal issue of parental alienation, wherein the custody of children post divorce is given exclusively to women, that is quite a big issue, and men often just grapple with the system to get fair access of their own children. Uh, that is something needs to be addressed. Then there is the gender death gap, wherein overwhelming number of men are doing riskier jobs. They are the ones who are subjected to um, risks, as well as the high number of deaths, like in industrial deaths. It's overwhelmingly men who die, combat deaths, accidental deaths, and quite a few of such nature, wherein men are found to be uh, you know um, invariably subjected to risks which result in higher number of their deaths. And if we are wanting to go towards a gender equal society, then we need to address these issues as well. So if there are certain areas wherein we find that representation of genders is not equal, then they need to be talked about. And this is one forum which talks about the deaths, industrial deaths, mining related deaths, sewage cleaning related deaths of men. So that is something needs to be addressed.
All right, Tim, where in your viewpoint is society weighing down both men and women, and according to you, what needs to be done about it?
Well, I think it's not so much a matter of what needs to be done as it is a matter of what needs to be understood. Society is weighing both men and women down under the toxic belief that men have the power and women are the victims, a belief system that would demonize men and infantilize women. Under this male power, female victimization belief system, feminists, women's self-appointed spokespersons, come to the bargaining table saying, in effect, we women have nothing, you men have everything. Therefore, man must pour from his glass half full into woman's glass half empty. And he must keep pouring, even as women en masse cry out, there are no men. But, within equalism, women may come to the bargaining table saying, you men have power, we women have power. We experience victimization, you experience victimization. Let's negotiate. Woman thus shows up not as victim, but rather as equal partner, to be respected and bargained with. We need to understand that in the benefits enjoyed and in the liabilities suffered, in the power and in the victimization, the freedoms, the constraints, the good and the bad, light and shadow, it all balances out between woman and man, and it always has. And we need to understand that it all balances out is not an end point, it is a new beginning. We need to understand that women and men are not identical and not absolutely interchangeable. And we need to understand that each sex often acts as its own worst enemy, primarily responsible for creating its own predicaments and miseries.
Amit, why do you think it's hard for majority of the men to publicly talk about situations they've been hurt in? Do you think that this also prevents them from getting justice?
The society has always been um, favored in a way wherein men have the stereotypical role of being protectors and providers. So what this role does is that it expects men to be macho, it expects men to be strong. Only those kind of men are rewarded. So if you are a good provider, I mean you are earning well. If you are a good protector, which means that you are a strong man, then you are considered to be more worthy. That's how the society has been designed. And the, the result of this is that men are expected to be strong always. And if a man comes out with his weakness, then generally he will lose his worthiness. People will see him as someone who is weak. So that results in men not coming out and discussing their problems. If they have certain emotional scars, then they don't come out and open about it. They feel that if they are going out and talking about certain um, mental issues, if they are talking about their emotional issues, then people might think that they are sissy, they are feminine, they are weaker. That's the reason men don't share, and eventually this emotional distress gathers into their minds, it overwhelms them, many a times leading to depression, and in quite a few times leading them to take the extreme step of suicide, because they feel that their issue cannot be resolved, and they think that people will judge them negatively, they will not value them enough. That's the reason they go ahead and just commit suicide, which is something we need to address. And this just by accepting men as being weak intermittently from time to time or regularly, whenever they feel that they are weak, just accepting them that yes, they can be weak, but at the same time valuing them equally as they were earlier before they showed this weakness. That is something will go ahead in a long way to help men and reduce their suicides. And talking about justice, when a man opens up, even the judicial system is not there to help him. I mean, there are no laws in many countries, or almost all the countries, wherein a man seeking help for domestic violence is given the same amount of judicial help the way a woman is given. Like there are not even laws in many countries wherein domestic violence is addressed. It is not even considered properly as a crime against man. There are no mechanisms for a man to go ahead and file a complaint against a woman, a intimate partner. So that is something not helping men in any way. So once the whole society starts accepting men as someone who can be weak and needs support, then I think even the judicial system will fall in line, and there will be some kind of recourse to justice for men who face violence.
Parthu, what would you say on this?
When you say what prevents men from speaking out, I would say this is one area that we seriously need to work on. And since men think they are the provider and they are the protector of women, when they are abused by the same women, they feel that their identity is lost. They do not recognize themselves as men at all, and that's why they cannot talk about the atrocities against them. I have observed that in many cases men themselves do not understand that they are undergoing some kind of problem, or some kind of abuse by a woman, especially when it is done by a woman. So in these cases, first of all, the challenge is we need to make people understand that about misandry, as I spoke earlier, and that's what I write about it in my blog. And men also need to start talking to other men, their friends, their family, etc., about the issues. And we also need to give them a patient hearing, because most often men are not heard. There are different studies that show that men do not speak up, especially Indian men. They think they are the protector of women, and when they cannot protect themselves, their identity is completely lost. Yes, I agree to you to some extent that by not speaking up, they are actually not getting justice, so they are making it worse for them. They need to speak up, and we need to actually create that environment first so that men start speaking up.
All right, now moving on to Tim. So, Tim, tell us a little about the gender related books that you wrote. What provoked you into writing them?
Well, I look out at the world and what I see breaks my heart. I see a diminishment of heterosexual love, marriage, and parenting. I see heterophobia in the form of Me Too and rape culture and toxic masculinity and incels and millennials having less sex than any previous generation. I see female-initiated divorce, social isolation, suicide, single mothers, fatherlessness, all risen to truly alarming levels. I see vast damage to the social fabric and a concurrent rise in every social pathology that concerns us most in the world today. I believe that the male power female victimization paradigm is the source of all our gender political woes. It is a gender belief system that maximizes intersex rage, rancor, resentment, victim, and vengeance motives. It is grossly one-sided, which is why it is false, which is why it is poisonous. I wrote my books to balance out the gender belief system and neutralize that poison. Men more respected but less loved, women more loved but less respected. It has always been so. In truth, the enormous consequences and vast repercussions suffered by women for being less respected have been matched in full by the enormous consequences and vast repercussions suffered by men for being less loved. My first book is called Loving Men, Respecting Women, The Future of Gender Politics, because men are hurting, but men are not loved enough to elicit the empathy they need. Women are powerful, but women are not respected enough to be held accountable. Even so, the sexes ply an equal overall force of influence in the human system and are thus equally responsible for outcomes.
Okay, Partho Sadhukan, what comes to your mind when you hear the term women's rights? How do you look at it, and is it any different from the term men's rights for you?
When I hear the term women's rights, the first thing that comes to my mind is, some kind of, movement that actually wants to take away all their responsibilities and want to talk only about their rights. Now, this definition is coming from the present, whatever activism I am seeing from the women's rights groups, and whatever I have observed historically, not in the early stages of women's rights movement. Now, that is the reason I started studying about Vedic society, as it is said that Vedic society was most oppressive. And surprisingly, if you read my articles on the Vedic living and Vedic society, you will understand women were most respected and they had most rights in Vedic society rather than in today's world. So, yes, the concept of women's rights and men's rights is entirely different. In men's rights, we talk about dignity of men and of equality, getting equality, equal respect for whatever we do. Women's rights movement is especially a movement that has become of opportunistic movement, a criminal movement, which in all spheres of life is only spreading terrorism and nothing else.
Yes, over to you, Amit. Same question.
As I said in the beginning, men's rights is a concept of highlighting issues that are related to men. Just similarly, women's rights is an issue about highlighting issues related to women. Just as there are other forums about highlighting issues about the other aspects in the society. And to start with the women's rights and men's rights, they need not be antagonizing to each other. They are not opposite. They both can go together. Men's rights is an issue about fighting for justice for men when they have been wronged. Women's rights is similarly a forum that is trying to highlight issues about injustice to women and fighting for justice for women. So both of them can go together, and there is no contradiction between both of these.